Hi everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Desteni I Process live Google Hangout. In this Hangout and from this Hangout, we're starting a new series where we will be introducing Desteni, the Desteni I Process courses, and all the tools and principles that we are working with and using and living for ourselves on a daily basis within the Desteni Group. So in this first Hangout, we're going to do a general overview of what is Desteni, what's the Desteni I Process, and introduce this for anyone who is not familiar with Desteni or the group. And as always, you're welcome to ask questions or place a comment. You can do so in the left corner of the video on YouTube where it says be part of the conversation. And there you can go to our Google Plus page and ask your question, and we will give perspectives on it live here on the air. Today we have Kelly with us from Seattle. Hey, Kelly.
Hi.
And we have Bella with us from Berlin, Germany. Hi, Bella.
Hi, guys.
And my name is Anna, and I am located here in Sweden. So let's start talking about Desteni. What is Desteni to you? Do you want to explain a little bit about what is the group? How long has it existed?
Me, Anna, sorry, I missed that. Yeah, it's kind of a big question, but I guess simplistically, it's just people, like pretty normal human beings, coming together to work for change in the world because we see that there's a lot of problems that need solutions. And we've realized on some level or another that we as humans and humanity are the ones responsible for the way the world is, and therefore the ones who need to take proactive action into solutions, or nothing will change. So Desteni is about people coming together to do that, because that's what's always never happened, is people actually coming together to work together for real solutions. So
cool. And within that, we can also add that in relation to what Kelly was saying, is that the Desteni Group is not religious, it's not spiritual, it's not affiliated with any religion or of any kind. And quite uniquely, it's a global group. We come from all areas, all parts of the world, all cultures, and there is really no limit to who are participating, you know, all ages, which is really cool. And the participation is based on individuals, like Kelly was saying, coming together of their own volition, and doing what needs to be done to actually change this world. Do you have anything to add, Bella?
Not really at this point. I definitely agree that it's about responsibility and creation in terms of investigating and realizing how we are creating ourselves, how we are creating our relationships, and consequently how we are creating our society and this world, and taking responsibility for that. Yeah.
Cool. So do you guys want to share some of the ways that we at Desteni take proactive action, as Kelly was saying?
One point would be, for instance, investigating the various beliefs that we hold, or value judgments that we have towards other people, towards society and the world in general, but also within ourselves, towards ourselves, and how we very often limit ourselves and our participation in society, in the world, and why, like investigating what is it that actually drives us, what is it that makes us who we are and how we are, and how we perhaps actually able to change that and be and become the directive authority of who we are and how we coexist in this world.
Yeah, and we do that primarily, or for example, through writing. So basically, for example, how I participate in Destiny is through writing blogs. And, you know, I sit at home, I live in my own country, I have my work, or we have our studies, and then I participate through the internet, but also just in my own life, like Bella was saying, where I go out into the world and reflect on what I see and the reactions that come up within me. And then I, for example, go home and I write it out. And I would say that the tool of writing specifically is one of the most important tools that Destiny is sharing. And actually, it's something that I haven't seen a lot in other groups, activist groups, or even spiritual or religious groups. So how do you guys use writing?
Yeah, that's a good point. Like how you're saying that other groups, don't really, I haven't seen this anywhere either. This type of writing, where writing is used as a tool to basically sort yourself out. Because within realizing that, all humans here, we're all responsible for the world. So that means each one of us as an individual is responsible. And so we have to, on an individual level, get to know ourselves and find how and where we're responsible for what we're creating in the world and sort that out. And there's really no better way to do that than through writing, because that's where you take who you are, and who you are is really the words and that are in you, the definitions and the words of what we live. And so there's no better way than writing or typing to bring those words out of you and put them on something concrete so that you can look at them and really see who you are. What are the words that I'm living right now? What are the beliefs and the justifications and the definitions that I'm living? And even in some other groups or methods that do utilize writing, like journal writing, for instance, it's still not done in a way where it's about you writing in a way that's directive. Like you're usually just kind of writing about all your experiences and feelings and stuff, but within that, it's all that's missing is the point of then going and taking all that and like sorting it out, really investigating what does it mean, what are the consequences of the thoughts that I think and the actions that I live in my world. And so that's what is different about the writing done through the Desteni I process, and what makes it such an effective tool for not just understanding oneself, but also understanding like humanity as a whole, and understanding the mind, and stuff that science hasn't even effectively figured out yet. So I mean, what's really fascinating is when you start this process and get to know how the mind works, it kind of puts you at a greater level of understanding than even exists on the large scale. So quite a fascinating and important tool that you learn how to use like through the Desteni I process course.
It's kind of like when you were saying that I had this image coming up of it's like having been underwater your entire life, like drowning in a way, and then for the first time you realize that there's a whole world above that water. But then what is so interesting is that we're so used to that water, or that churning in our minds, so that in the beginning we cannot stay above water for a long time, so we fall down again and then you go up again, and that's quite interesting. And then also what you were saying about the power of writing, and like, because you were mentioning journaling, and I was thinking about how that's usually something that people do in their private own space, that they don't share it with anyone. And that's a tremendous difference, is that what we also do and the way that we do it, because we don't just write for the sake of writing, but there's some very practical applications and ways to write where you can really push yourself beyond your limitations. And what is so important within that is that the writings are shared, and that others can be supported by the realizations that you had or that I had, or that others can look at our writings and say, hey, did you see that point? And I think that's a very powerful difference between Desteni and a lot of other groups, because it tends to be either very personal and very isolated. Like that's how I felt within my so-called spiritual journey, and that personal development is that I could create all kinds of delusions in my mind, and no one would ever really, stop me and say, hey, what are you doing? So there is that dynamic of having the group to check and cross-reference and share, but then you also go back to yourself and back to your individual space and work with it with yourself.
Yeah, that's a really great point. With Desteni, you have a group of support. So I mean, it's humans coming together instead of all staying in our own individual bubbles like we usually do, where, like you said, you can just kind of make up anything or create anything, and there's no one there to point out like, that's ridiculous, or, So the difference is here with Desteni, we have a forum of support where you can share what you're working with, what you're walking through, and then other people can come and give perspectives from their lives, people who have maybe walked the same thing before. And that way you can actually learn things a lot faster than having to actually go through the consequences of things in your own life, because you can actually learn from one another. And I mean, there's many groups and individuals out there that believe that we're here on Earth to be learning lessons. And so that's another thing that Desteni represents and takes to a real capacity, is actually kind of grabbing that ball by the balls, if you will, and actually really jumping in with each other and learning from each other. So yeah, that group point of support is like really massive, because within that, you do still have to stand, for yourself, within yourself, because you have to evaluate. I mean, because we're all still learning here, so we all have to evaluate for ourselves, what's true, what's not true, and within that, working together.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is also to see the feedback from various different people, sharing that, I can relate to this point that you're going through, or I can relate to what you're expressing and what you're facing. And it's interesting then to realize that everyone is going through the same shit, and everyone is facing the same points, with variations, obviously. But in the end, the patterns of our existence are countable. They're not infinite. It's like really like a program that you can lay out and look at and see, okay, these are the kinds of interactions that exist, these are the systems that exist, these are the kinds of relationships that exist. And what's interesting within that, when one begins to see that, is that one realizes that the very same patterns that exist within ourselves, and fascinatingly enough, no one is actually really speaking about it. Like if you hang out with friends, or if you talk to people on Facebook or whatever, no one is really talking about the nitty-gritty shit that's going on inside and the things that we are really struggling with, right? So, but then within the blogs and the sharings and the videos and everything that we put out there, and coming together as just normal people from around the world and addressing these points, a lot of interesting stuff is opening up. And then you can also see that the same patterns and systems that exist within ourselves, in our minds, is exactly the same patterns and systems and interactions that exist within our world and systems of the world. So, yeah.
Yeah, that was actually a powerful realization for me, and also a relief. to realize that because the other side of that is that we tend to think that it must be who I am. There must be something wrong with me fundamentally, inherently, at a deep level. And then when you start thinking like that, you also automatically think that you can never change. You know, it's who I am, I can't change it, I can't do anything about it. And then when I went to the Destiny forum, and we can share about also the various forums that are available, when I went to the Destiny forum and I saw others were saying the exact same things that I had in my mind. They were writing out the exact same thoughts that I thought were unique. I thought, but that's who I am. So if that's also who you are, then who am I?
What is going on here?
Yeah, and then that, you know, assisted me to realize, maybe that's not who I am then, because it keeps coming up in so many different people who have completely different life stories than me, and exactly like you were saying, Belly, sorry, Bella and Kelly. I just merged your name. It assisted me to see, okay, so it's systems. It's actually information programmed into me because of the way that I've lived my life, or how my parents, their approach or their culture, and that assists in then being able to start
Uh-oh. We got Anna cutting out.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
What?
Wait, we lost you for a second there.
Oh, I said we have a question from Valentine.
Cool.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He is asking, what would you say to the people who say that they have their own path of way of self-realization and do not want to use Destiny tools?
Well, listen, I would say obviously everyone has their own path of self-realization, because everyone's path is their own life, right? Now, the tools that we are applying and that are shared at Destiny are not, we say the Destiny tools, but it's not even something new. We are speaking about self-honesty, self-forgiveness, self-responsibility. So these are actually universal tools. And from my perspective, everyone, sooner or later, will get to the point of self-forgiveness, will get to the point of self-honesty. So I would say that then would be just a reaction that someone is having for the moment because of whatever reason. Yeah, that's my perspective.
Do you have a perspective, Kelly?
Yeah, I mean, basically the tools, like Bella was saying, they're not anything specifically in relation to Destiny. It's not anything that Destiny created. It's what's already here, as, you know, just using writing to write yourself out, and using self-forgiveness to assist yourself to release yourself from the patterns that you've always walked. I mean, none of that is anything that's like created or fabricated. It's what's here, and it's just using those in a very direct and streamlined fashion so that you can really walk the process of self-change as effectively, as quickly, as directly as possible. So I mean, to use what any other method is not going to be as direct and effective. So it's really up to every individual, like, you know, if you want to use tools to make it easier, faster, or not. I mean, it's up to every individual to decide, you know, how you're going to walk your life and your experiences. And so really, you know, I would rather use these tools because I've found them to be so effective, and that's it. I mean, other people have realized this on their own, you know, in one way or another, because this is basically the heart of what we are here to figure out, is how to sort ourselves out, and this is how you do it. So
yeah, yeah, it's not about Destiny. That's the thing. You know, I have met people in my life who were walking the same principles that we're walking, but they did it for themselves. They did it without perhaps doing it so specifically as we were doing, but they were doing it. So like you were saying, we're not patenting the tools or the principles.
Yeah.
And then I would also say that, like, this point of I'm walking my own path, in a way it's kind of delusional, because although, you know, of course, each of us have our own personal process, you know, we cannot deny that, but at the same time, like we were just saying, all human minds are exactly the same. So there's, you know, a limit to how unique your path can be. And what we're sharing here is not something, you know, we're enforcing on people. We're saying this has worked for us. You know, try it if you want, and see if it works for you. So I would say that it's kind of silly to say, no, I don't even want to try it, because how can you know it won't work for you if you haven't tried it? Yeah.
It's kind of like, you know, a sponge is a tool. You know, when you wash the dishes, you use a sponge. You know, you can do the dishes some other way, like use your hands or, you know, nothing. But why not use a sponge? You know, it's just because that's the most effective tool for the job. You know, so it's like you can do it. I mean, to go and say, that's ridiculous, I have a problem with using sponges, so I'm not going to use a sponge. I'm going to lick all my dishes. You know, I mean, sure, you can do that. But why not just do it the most effective way?
Yeah, I would say definitely then take up that challenge of trying it. You know, you can refuse it or reject it, but try it first, or at least investigate what it is that we're sharing and how we have actually changed our lives through walking with Desteni.
Yeah, I agree. I'd say any tool that anyone is using should be tested. Though that's also a bit tricky, because if one hasn't yet, in a way, opened up the point of self-honesty for oneself, then you can test anything and still get to your own conclusions based on what you want to think and believe. But okay, that's another story. I'd like to say something on the point of self-forgiveness, because I've noticed, or I've come across people that said to me, I don't need self-forgiveness because I don't feel like I need self-forgiveness. Obviously this is coming from not understanding our context of self-forgiveness, and from the fact that the word forgiveness is tainted through all the religions and the religious stuff that everybody knows about. So, I mean, maybe it's something to expect that people would react to the word forgiveness. So if we have a moment, maybe I'd like to share my perspective on self-forgiveness and what it is.
Sure, go ahead. Yeah. Could you also then first explain what self-forgiveness is and how we use it at Desteni?
Okay, sure. Let me start by saying that in my understanding, there's various layers or levels of self-forgiveness, and I'll come to that in a moment. But what we start with is writing self-forgiveness. And writing self-forgiveness, as you investigate a point for yourself, for example, let me go one step back, because you were mentioning parents and culture. And what I've noticed is, like, everyone will tell you, you know, this and that happened to me when I was a child, and that's why I'm like this and that. So everybody has a story to say to explain why we are how we are, right? So within that, however, we don't realize that we are within that, in fact, in a way, blaming, for example, our parents, our culture, society, the world systems, anything, right? And within that, by saying, this is what happened to me, this is what I went through, and that's why I'm like this, and this is how I am, and that's it, that's in a way a limitation, right? And also within that, we give away our responsibility and our power to say, wait a minute, let me check. Okay, this and that happened to me when I was a child, and this is what the consequences have been. But do I have to accept this? Is there perhaps a way for me to change? Is there perhaps a way for me to expand myself and stuff like that, right? So within that, an example of written self-forgiveness here would be, I forgive myself that I've accepted and allowed myself to hold on to blaming my parents or my culture for the way I have become and for how I'm experiencing myself right now in my life, right? And as you start writing self-forgiveness, what I've experienced and noticed and observed is that every sentence you write opens up the next point. So for me, it was always like writing self-forgiveness was like taking this like knot of something that I'm experiencing or I'm facing and opening it up a little bit, looking at the first point that I'm seeing, writing self-forgiveness, and within that, like tracking it back and slowly but surely with each self-forgiveness statement, opening it up to see it from beginning to the end, to understand how did I create this experience? How did I create this point that I'm facing right now in my life? So that would be the writing application of self-forgiveness, which is actually an application of taking self-responsibility for yourself, your life, what you're experiencing, how you are, and what is here within you and as you. And then, because I was speaking about the various layers or levels of self-forgiveness, this writing self-forgiveness is obviously a tool, right? But then, how do we actually change? We have to live our realizations. We have to live our solutions. And self-forgiveness ultimately would be the point where you, for instance, enter a situation that you've been through before many times in your life, and you know, oh my God, whenever I enter such and such situation, this is how I react, all right? So that's the program. This is what happens. And self-forgiveness lived in that moment would be to see, realize what's going on, let it go, release yourself from activating and entering that reaction, and in that moment, changing yourself, changing your participation, and you know, self-forgiveness. You give yourself the responsibility and the opportunity to change yourself, your participation, your relationships. So that's about it from my perspective.
Do you guys have any examples you want to share of how you've used self-forgiveness to practically change a point in your lives?
Yeah, well, one kind of extreme example that comes up to mind for me is a moment where I was driving in my car, getting ready to go to work, and it was very snowy, icy weather, and my car was driving down a fairly steep driveway, and the driveway took a turn to the right, and the car decided not to go that way. And it just went straight off the end of the driveway and into a tree. And in this moment within myself, I was just like, it was like this extreme reaction of like, oh shit, and fear, and you know, how am I going to get to work? How am I going to pay for this car? You know, so this was quite an extreme event where you would typically go into, you know, I'm sure many would relate to that kind of experience in that moment. But through working with the Desteni I process, I knew that in that moment, that reaction just isn't necessary. It's not me, actually. I don't have to have that reaction. And so in that moment, I immediately just applied self-forgiveness for what was coming up within me. You know, I forgive myself that I've accepted and allowed myself to believe that having my car hit a tree is, you know, a reason to have an extreme reaction within me. And it was really amazing because then suddenly the reaction just went away. I didn't have it anymore. And here I was, it was almost like I felt so extremely powerful, like a god in that moment, because here was this event that, you know, for all intents and purposes, you know, it's like A plus B equals C. I crashed my car equals I should be extremely horrified and scared right now. And it was just like, poof, nothing. I was just standing there and I was like stable, like, okay, I'm going to get through this somehow. I'm just going to do whatever I have to do and deal with this situation. But I didn't need a big reaction to compound everything. And, you know, it puts those kind of reactions, you know, puts a lot of stress on our physical body and often makes a bad situation even worse. So that was a very profound moment for me that showed me just what's possible to change in a moment. I mean, it doesn't mean that it works that way for every experience and every reaction. But that was the one that stands out to me as really showing me pretty clearly, like, the power that we do have to be able to change in a moment just by making that decision and then standing as that decision and utilizing the self-forgiveness as the tool to kind of snap ourselves out. Because, you know, I think to really understand how self-forgiveness works, you have to understand just how we really are basically the sum of all the words that exist within us, as all the thoughts we have, you know, all the ideas, all the beliefs, those are all made up with words. And so the point of self-forgiveness is you're taking words, the words that are in you, and letting them go. You know, the words that say, in this situation, I react like this. So you take that with the self-forgiveness and you speak it so that the words resonate through you and you release that point, and it is very assisting to be able to actually change in that moment and no longer let those words have that power over you. And so, yeah, that's one of the most extreme examples for me. But then, yeah, but then I would say that that was one that really helped to show me the possibilities. But then it's really also in the little day-to-day things that self-forgiveness has real power too. Like within, because really we're here, we have to be changing ourselves as individuals, like in all levels of our behavior and living, to make sure that we're always acting in ways that is, you know, gonna have a positive effect on this reality. So basically, it's the getting down to the little things, the little details where, you know, when maybe we're acting in ways that is only suited to our interest and we're not caring about anything else or anyone else, even though we actually live here with billions of other beings who are like just as important, let's say. So it's getting down to those little nitty-gritty things, like in relationships. You know, relationships is a good example, where you might have blame towards someone or anger towards someone, and in a moment, you know, say your boyfriend didn't take out the trash, and you see that, and you instantly go into this reaction of like, oh, what the heck? You know, why didn't they take out the trash? They're so lazy, they don't do anything. And so that's in the moment, you know, where you would stop and realize, like, okay, what am I participating in here? It's another if this, then that scenario where if they didn't take out the trash, I react in anger. And that's where you can utilize the self-forgiveness to snap yourself out of it in that moment, because you have to realize that that's not an effective reaction in that moment. Yeah. So
let me ask you guys a little bit about, for those who don't know Desteni so well or aren't familiar with where they can participate. Can you guys talk a little bit about some of the forums and the websites where you go and participate and write, for example? Oh, and also the courses. We want to mention those also.
Yeah. Well, there's the Desteni website, which is the main site where there's extensive articles and videos with all kinds of perspectives on the mind and experiences and reactions and basically anything in existence. Nothing is sacred. And that's at the Desteni.org site. And then on that site is a forum, and the forums is where you can go and participate in discussions, and that is really a fascinating and supportive tool to go on there to actually watch and participate in walking through the process of self-change. I mean, it's really amazing to see, not just to walk it yourself, but to see other people actually standing up and taking self-responsibility to change themselves. You know, I mean, that's like, you don't see that anywhere. And so that's the forums, and there's all kinds of threads, different threads on different topics, so you could really just spend like hours in there. And then there's the Desteni I Process courses. There's a Lite course, and then there's a Pro course that comes after the Lite course. And the Lite course is free, and it's awesome. I've been through it myself. I'm on there as a buddy, so when you walk this course, you get a buddy for free that walks with you the whole time and is there for assistance and perspectives. And the course is really amazing because it introduces you to all the basic points that we've talked about here, how to do the writing and self-forgiveness, and you know, helps to, you know, train you to how to do that the most effectively and the most streamlined, instead of having to try and figure out these things on your own. And it's free. And then that's the perfect lead-in to the Desteni Pro course, which takes things to a whole nother level, where you really get into the details of how the mind works, and the conscious mind, subconscious, unconscious mind, and you will be like a master of the mind. It's really fascinating. So I think that's all the points.
And then there's the agreement course, which
the agreement.
Yeah.
That one is really amazing too. Yeah, that one for relationships. Yeah, relationship support. I mean, because that's what it all comes down to on this earth, is that we're all walking relationships with each other and with ourselves. And we want to sort out those relationships so that, you know, we can get rid of all the stuff of like blame and anger and all that, you know, stuff that doesn't lead to anything pleasant in our world. And the agreement course is the way to do that. If you're tired of having relationships that just end, you know, eventually, inevitably, and like if you're like me, who at one point in my life swore that I was never going to have relationships again because I was so tired and didn't see how it was ever going to work, that's definitely the course to take, because through that you learn how to take self-responsibility and to actually have effective relationships and not have them just inevitably end up in misery and fighting, and like so many do. So definitely.
And then there's the blogging, the blogs, and the Facebook groups.
Oh yeah.
You want to share about that, Bella?
Sure. There's so many blogs from so many people around the world, everyone walking their own process, sharing about points they're facing and how they work through the points, how they change their behavior, their experience, their participation in their reality. So that's really cool to read, because most of the times you can relate and you can find solutions and inspiration for yourself to, you know, just learn new ways of approaching yourself and things within your world. So that's the blogging around the world. And yeah, the Facebook groups, there's the Self-Forgiveness Facebook group, there's the Journey to Life Facebook group. We've got various different groups, blogging. Yeah, so basically, most people also share links to such groups and platforms on their blogs. So maybe we can also place some links to such groups where people can find blogs on the video, right?
Yes, we will place that in the description. And we forgot one very important thing. Eqafe.
Oh, yeah.
What is
Yeah,
Eqafe?
awesome. Awesome support there. I mean, I still find it unbelievable how much material is being produced. Twice a week, there's new stuff, new interviews, and songs very often as well. There's various different series, for example, the Quantum Mind, or on relationships, relationship support series.
Animals.
The animals speaking, and there's also a lot of free stuff on Eqafe. So if you can't afford it, you can definitely yeah, have some fun with the free stuff. Over 100 downloads are for free. Yeah, definitely very cool real educational stuff. So check it out.
Yeah, Eqafe is like the library of the universe, universal library. So it's a website. What?
It's like the Holy Grail.
So yeah, or the, what is it called? The Akashic records, the real new Akashic records.
Yeah, but it's real. Yeah.
But it's real. But yeah, so Eqafe, it's a website with a web shop where all the new Desteni interviews and materials are, all the newest stuff is placed. All the old stuff is still accessible from YouTube and the website and all that. So it's all the new stuff. And there are series and interviews for everything. Whenever I'm facing something in my life, I just go onto the Eqafe website and I search for the word, you know, emptiness, victimization, jealousy, and then there's tons of interviews popping up, and I can go and have a listen, and it's really super cool. So it's like on-demand, direct support for you in the moment. And then the interviews will, you know, share various perspectives on how programs were created, or how the historical development of a certain behavior within humanity, or give like very practical support, for example, on sexuality or masturbation. So definitely go and check that out. We have another question from Valentin. He's asking, how is DIP Lite different from the relationship course, and which course do you recommend in which situation? Valentin, I think Kelly answered that before, because the agreement course is specifically about relationships. What you really do there, whether you're in a relationship now or you're not in a relationship, you walk through your own relationship to relationships. Love and sexuality and who you are within a relationship. And the DIP Lite course is really basic introduction to the tools that we're walking here. And I would say that what is so cool about Desteni I Process Lite is that it's a DIY course, so you're doing it yourself. It's completely up to you to walk through it. You can put whatever you want in it. You can write whatever you want, but it assists you in a very cool, structured way to use writing, you know, to take writing to the next level. And so I would say that the agreement course is more specific. You know, it's specifically on relationships. So you are asking which do you recommend in which situation, and I would say definitely do the DIP Lite first if you haven't, because that will give you the solid foundation to start writing and also sort out your relationships.
Yeah. And with the agreement course, the relationship course, also, like, even if you're not in a relationship, this will effectively prepare you to be in relationships by first sorting out your relationship with yourself, so that you can, you know, navigate a relationship more effectively. So it's even a cool, like, preparatory tool for, even if you're not in a relationship with someone else now, to assist you to get ready to.
Exactly, and Kelly said the relationship with yourself, but also the relationship patterns that you hold within yourself that have been formed and developed throughout your relationships that you've had within your life, because most people will be able to notice that regardless which relationship you're in, you always take your relationship patterns with you, and you end up experiencing more or less the same things and experiencing yourself more or less the same way. So, yeah.
Cool. Is there anything else you guys want to say for anyone who's interested in Desteni or is considering joining but they're not sure? Any tips?
Yeah, just investigate any of the points we mentioned. That sounds interesting. Just take a look, investigate it. You're gonna find some fascinating stuff, and you take it to wherever you'd like to go.
I just realized we forgot one point as well, which is the Destonians website, which is a website that gathers all the Desteni, the people who are like officially participating with Desteni, and you can see all their links. But there is actually a wiki page, just like Wikipedia. We have our own wiki, where you have like really everything is explained in very detail and specificity. So you can find self-forgiveness. What is that? What is the portal? And that's a really cool way to also introduce yourself to the tools and the things that we speak about, like self-forgiveness, or if you have dreams and you want to know more about, what does my dream say, you can go there, and I'll place that link also in the description.
Yeah, that's a great point. Anything that anyone watching is like, what's that? Yeah, you can go check that out and find detailed descriptions. And then one other thing is also vlogs.
Yes.
We also do vlogging. Yeah. Which I think you can probably find links on the Desteni forum.
On the Desteni forum or on Facebook. Yeah, I definitely suggest adding us on Facebook, because we also just, daily participate. If I have some insight about something that I see in my world or something that came up, I will share it on Facebook. So we have that constant daily support and opening up between us. And then I would also say a tip, because this was suggested to me when I joined Desteni back in 2009, to read all the material on the Desteni website. And that seemed very daunting at the time, but I pushed myself to do it, and I'm quite sure that I read probably all the articles, or most of them, and that really assisted me. That was very important to get that fundamental understanding of what is going on in the world. But then also to understand that that things are developing and growing, and a lot has happened since 2009. So I definitely suggest also listening to the Eqafe interviews and reading the blogs, so that you have that full perspective of what's going on.
Yeah.
Any last words?
I'd like to clarify a point, because I used the word that I am not satisfied with when I was speaking about self-forgiveness, and I said that I was trying to give a perspective of the fact that there's various, and I said levels or layers of self-forgiveness, right? But then Kelly gave that example of her experience with crashing the car, right, and speaking self-forgiveness. And I was like, oh yeah, speaking self-forgiveness, I forgot about that. So I would rather prefer to use the word steps or dimensions, which are also the same steps and dimensions that we participate in within our existence, which is writing or thinking, then speaking, and acting or living in our physical reality, right? So, because I was saying that writing self-forgiveness, you can look at more of like a tool, and then speaking self-forgiveness is another kind of tool with more extensive, let's say, effects. And then, as I said, ultimately, then living self-forgiveness, which would be the immediate release of oneself from a pre-programmed reaction in the moment that it's happening. So it's not to say that there's like levels and stuff, but simply various dimensions and ways that one can apply and live self-forgiveness.
That's a cool clarification, and we're actually going to do a hangout only on self-forgiveness. So we will come back to the details and the specificity of what self-forgiveness is, how you can use it for yourself in much more depth, because we will dedicate an entire hangout to that point. So maybe you can come back, Bella, when we do that, and you can expand some more on these perspectives.
Yeah, cool. Will do.
Cool. Next week, we have 2 people with us who have walked the Desteni I Process Lite course, the free course that Kelly was talking about, and they're like fresh out of the course. So they're going to share about their experiences with walking this course and share what they have, the insights that they've gained from it and how it has benefited their life. I look forward to talking to them as well. So, ladies, thank you so much for being here and sharing with us your perspectives on destiny and self-forgiveness and everything that we do.
Cool. Thanks, Anna.
Yeah, we keep on walking. See you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.